Hey everybody, KMO here, and I'm going to read a piece of, I'm going to read something that somebody posted to the Sea Realm podcast discussion group on MeWe.com. Irv Mills, who is a blogger and whom I have interviewed repeatedly for my podcast work, he posted a link to his most recent blog post, and I said, hey, that's great, you can post your links here, but if you would, give us a summary or something. Give us something, to chew on that doesn't require that we follow the link and go and read the whole blog post. And Irv responded, obligingly, by writing the following. He writes, okay, though brevity is sure not my strong suit, as I think you know, KMO, I am that rare collapsnik who favors the idea of a slow collapse, rather than a hard, fast one. I've been advising people to get out of the big cities while they can and find a place to live in a fairly remote small town, which is well suited to avoid the worst of climate change, and that can supply itself with water, food, and firewood, as business as usual withers and eventually ceases to be able to provide most of us with the necessities of life. I've been saying the first thing you have to do is become part of the community and set up a social network that will serve you well as times get harder. But it will also be necessary to do some physical preparations, and this post is the first in a series where I talk about what those might be. I favor bugging in. But there are times when fire, food, or storms may force you out of your home, when you have no choice but to bug out. Most of this post is about the details of doing that, and my ideas are pretty different from the typical survivalist idea of bugging out. Hope that helps. Well, I haven't gone and read the whole blog post, so what I'm responding to here is just really a small piece of what I just read from Irv. And that is the very first part, that he has been advising people to get out of the big cities while they can and find a place to live in a fairly remote small town, which is well situated to avoid the worst of climate change and that can supply itself with water, food, and firewood, as business as usual withers and eventually ceases to be able to provide most of us with the necessities of life. Well, here's the thing. I don't believe in a systemic, global, simultaneous collapse. I think some places, like the place I'm in now, Bellows Falls, Vermont, will continue to wither on the vine. That the smart, ambitious kids will go elsewhere looking for opportunity, and that the people who remain will either be comfortable or will be of that class of people who has no expectation of being able to better their existence. I am surrounded here by poor people, uneducated people, heroin addicts, and people whose lives are they just seem to be a mess. They seem to be the result of hopelessness, despair, and just no clear vision of how to live more effectively. And it's a beautiful place. It's walkable. There are many accomplished, smart, creative, industrious people here, but not enough of them to really provide a community that I feel at home in. So here are my thoughts to the advice. Here's my response to the advice that you should get out of the big cities while you can. I think the big cities will weather collapse better than most places. I think that if in times of acute crisis, where it seems like maybe we're on the brink of a systemic collapse, that the cities will be the places you want to be, because as Nicole Foss says, that's where relief efforts will be focused. There isn't enough population density out here in rural Vermont for the federal government to bother trying to get supplies and emergency relief to us in a time of national crisis. Those resources are going to be directed at cities. They're going to be directed at the population centers. And if you are a young person and you have the requisite skill to still, get a piece of the techno-industrial capitalist growth paradigm, do it. Get that piece, because it won't last forever. It might not last forever. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that out here there's just not a whole lot you can do. If you have a portable income, if you can bring your income out here to the countryside, that's one thing. But if you are struggling in the city, you're going to struggle out here, and there's just going to be a lot less on offer, a lot less of the stuff that you're used to, and in particular, less of the sorts of people you want to associate with. There are cool people. There are smart, cool people out here in the sticks, but not that many of them, and they're a much smaller percentage of the population than they are in the cities. If you are a social person, you will miss the city. I'm telling you. And if you think that the collapse is coming, well, the collapse can be coming. The collapse can be in progress your whole life. And people who make certain decisions will continue to do well, and people who make other kinds of decisions will continue to do poorly. There will be more people in that latter category, but if you have the possibility of being in the former category, go for it. If you leave the city, suppose you own some property there. Maybe it's not paid off, maybe you've got a mortgage, but you've got some equity in a piece of property in a place where real estate values are climbing. Here, real estate values are stagnant. People put their houses on the market and they sit there unsold for years. If you buy a place out here in the country, you are locked in. If you have a place in the city, particularly a dynamic, growing city where maybe there's some tech companies, or just maybe there's government is it's a locus of government spending, like anywhere around Washington D.C. If you have just some equity in a piece of property there, that is going to continue to grow for as long as you are there. The minute you cash out, the minute you sell it and take that money and go elsewhere, you can't come back. You can't come back because you won't be able to afford to buy back in. It's a one-way trip. If you give up your spot in a dynamic, growing, economically vibrant, culturally vibrant place and think that you're going to create your paradise out in the country, more people try that than succeed. It's like opening a restaurant. You are likely to fail in that attempt. Yes, there are sterling examples. There are inspiring examples of somebody who had a vision and who opened a restaurant and it succeeded. But most restaurants fail. And most people who didn't grow up out here in the sticks and try to come out here and create some sort of paradise eventually go crawling back to the places where there is a vibrant economy and where there is a vibrant community of people like them, but they come back much diminished in terms of their material resources. It could work for you, but if you are tempted to leave in search of some better life, well, that's one thing. But if somebody has said something that makes you think, oh, I have to get out now before the collapse, don't act from fear. It never works out. It never works out to act from fear. I have a friend who says otherwise, but you know what? He would be doing just fine back in the city. The fact that he's doing well out here, it does not validate the idea that running away from peak oil is going to lead you to a life of prosperity, and it's certainly not going to lead you into some new dynamic life of the mind, except online. And out here in the country, internet is not what it is in the city. It's much better for me here than it was when I was living in Tennessee, but it's unreliable. An upload that takes 5 minutes one day can take 5 hours the next. It is not reliable. It's not what you're used to in the city. And collapse is going to hurt out here more than it's going to hurt in the city, most likely, in my opinion. All right, that is all. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Stay well.